Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We've talked a lot about Stormy Daniels' attorney on this show over the past year. We've mocked him extensively. We've denigrated his possible run for president. We even gave him an unflattering nickname. But tonight, after many requests, he has agreed to come on our show. And in return, we're prepared to give him the serious treatment he says he deserves. And so we will. Stormy Daniels' lawyer joins us just minutes from now. But first tonight, Hurricane Florence has arrived in the United States. The storm is causing havoc all along the Carolina coast ahead of an expected landfall sometime tomorrow. Our chief meteorologist, Rick Rakemuth, has been following this since the very beginning, and he joins us with the latest. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Tucker. Yeah, maybe sometime tomorrow night. It might make landfall a couple of times, kind of bounce along the coast here. We can't exactly say that kind of precision, maybe 10, 20 miles one way or the other. We don't have that just yet. But I will tell you, this satellite image, a storm very close here, just south of the Outer Banks around Morehead City. At least that's the center of it. But it's a very large storm, hurricane force winds crossing about 160-mile path right there, in tropical storm force winds. That's winds around 40 miles an hour and above are about 400 miles across. So a really large storm that's going to impact so many people here. And the radar picture, this right here are tornado concerns. Right there, that's a tornado warning. We will see little tornadoes pop up throughout this. We have one tornado warning, and then I want to move forward and show you the flooding concerns. Right there, Morehead City, flash flooding going on. So that one spot dealing with both of this right here, we've probably seen 6 to 8 inches of rain already fall. And I think we're probably maybe 10 to 15% away through what this storm is going to be doing. Take a look at this. A buoy out here recorded a wind gust of 112 miles an hour. So the winds are definitely with us right in the center part of the storm, and that center part of the storm is just going to get closer to the shore tonight into tomorrow. Take a look at this. There's going to be a huge swath of land here, North Carolina, also into South Carolina, that gets about a foot of rain, and there will be isolated spots that are 2+, probably a few spots that are 40 inches plus by the time this is done. And when I say done, that means maybe Sunday into Monday. This is the track of it. Again, we don't know what is going to happen here along the coast. Eventually moves inland, and then very quickly Monday, Tuesday moves up towards the northeast, and we'll be done with this. But we have a long, probably 48 to 72 hours ahead. Tucker?
Rick Rakemuth, a real authority on that subject. Thank you, Rick.
You bet.
Stay tuned for more hurricane updates throughout the hour and throughout the night here on Fox. We'll take you live to the coastal regions that are already feeling the effects of Florence. It's happening now. But first tonight, Democrats are powerless to stop Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination on their own. That's the math of the question. But they're still trying, and they're going to keep trying, apparently, till the bitter end. In a last-minute twist today, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California says she has sent a letter about Kavanaugh to the FBI. It's a secret letter written by a secret person containing a secret allegation about possible misconduct in high school some 35-plus years ago. That's what we know. Trace Gallagher has more. Hey, Trace.
Hi, Tucker. Senator Feinstein released a statement saying the reason she won't talk about the information she passed on to federal investigators is because, quoting here, that individual strongly requested confidentiality, declined to come forward or press the matter further, and I have honored that decision. The New York Times is reporting the matter involves possible sexual misconduct between Kavanaugh and a female when the judge was in high school. Fox News has learned that Senator Feinstein first heard about the claim back in July, and yet during 65 meetings with senators, including Feinstein, more than 32 hours of confirmation hearings, and 1,278 written follow-up questions from Democrats to Kavanaugh, the matter was never raised until today when Senator Feinstein sent it to investigators. The FBI says it'll include the information in Kavanaugh's background file, but we're told any further action on the letter would have to come from the White House. So far, the White House has done nothing except call this a Democratic delay tactic. John Cornyn, the #2 Republican in the Senate and member of the Judiciary Committee, is incredulous, saying, quote, "Let me get this straight. This is a statement about a secret letter regarding a secret matter and an unidentified person, right?" The conservative Judicial Crisis Network says this has all the indications of an 11th-hour character assassination. We should note Democrats on the Judiciary Committee have also tried and failed to subpoena documents into Kavanaugh's time as a top White House aide to George W. Bush, including documents on Kavanaugh's knowledge of enhanced interrogations and warrantless wiretapping in the wake of 9/11. Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley, who has not yet seen the letter from Senator Feinstein, says the confirmation vote will go forward as scheduled September 20th. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks a lot for that summary. Author and columnist Mark Stein has been following this too, and he joins us tonight. So, Mark, typically you'd want to withhold judgment on something like this because you don't know what's in the letter. But here's what we do know. Judge Kavanaugh went to high school at Georgetown Prep in Bethesda, Maryland. If there was a crime alleged 35 years later, presumably that would be referred to the Maryland State Police or the local police in Bethesda. Instead, Senator Feinstein sent it to the FBI, federal authorities who would have no obvious jurisdiction. So that tells me right there that this is a crock, and it's the worst kind of smear, a smear you can't rebut against a man with a wife and small children. I'm not sure I've seen anything lower, ever.
No, you're absolutely right there. As you say, the FBI has no obvious jurisdiction here. I think in the normal course of events, given that this is something to do with the junior prom in Maryland in 1981 or 1979 or whenever the hell it was, it would be going to juvenile court. So this would be the first United States Supreme Court justice to be tried in juvenile court. That's a legal first. I think what we have here is actually the equivalent of what happened when Comey briefed the president on the so-called Steele dossier about Russian hookers in his hotel room and all the rest of it. And that gave the pretext to the media, because Comey then leaked news of the meeting, that gave the media a pretext to discuss the dossier. Likewise, Senator Feinstein releasing, as everyone said, the secret letter from a secret person about a secret matter about the high school prom, has now given cover for a lot of sexual allegations. We don't know what they are. They're half a lifetime ago. And as you say, it's not something that he can be rebutted. And the real battle here, Tucker, is actually between Dianne Feinstein and the New Left. They were disappointed by the big shot Democrat dinosaurs' performance in the hearing rooms, and they want something a little more Antifa, a little more Black Lives Matter, a little more Bernie Sanders. And it's pathetic to see Dianne Feinstein, and I've no idea what she did at her high school prom, however many years ago that was. It's pathetic to see Dianne Feinstein reduced to this.
Well, it's disgusting, and the dynamic you describe is exactly what's happening. The dinosaurs who are on their way out in charge of that party are terrified, and they're responding to them up. Let me ask you a question that seems reasonable to me. It'll probably spark protests against me somehow. And I don't know what the allegation is, and I'm prepared to withhold judgment on that. But a 35-year-old allegation, if it exists, that has never been reported to the police, doesn't that at least raise the question of why has it never been reported, assuming it hasn't been?
Yes, it's actually, I think it's wrong to go back and relitigate a past you didn't litigate at the time. I think that's very, very dangerous. You see that as part of this moral panic that has gone on over the Me Too things. I mean, if you go back to the nearest comparable thing, the Clarence Thomas business, that was within the previous decade. We're talking about something that was never I mean, the only reassuring thing about this is that, as you know, investigations are interminable in this country and in Washington in particular. And the only good thing about this is that the FBI has looked at it and kicked it out of their purview in 10 minutes flat. And good for them. They're not opening an investigation. They've just given it to the White House. They don't want to touch this. She's just diminished her own reputation by participating in this smear.
I've never met Brett Kavanaugh. I have no personal stake in this whatsoever. But honestly, I think any normal person should be offended by this. This is too much. It's too low. It's disgusting.
Oh, absolutely. It is. And this high school, I gather this is where Neil Gorsuch went to school too. So apparently it's where all Supreme Court judges. That's what it's the preparatory school for. So maybe he did something at his prom too. Yeah. Maybe it all goes back to the proms
it's
at
unbelievable.
This particular school.
It's an all-boys school for whatever it's worth. Mark Stein, we'll see you in just a minute. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Well, after many months of waiting, we're finally welcoming Stormy Daniels' lawyer onto the show, onto the set, actually, right here. He'll be joining us in just a moment. Obviously, all night we'll be watching the hurricane Florence as it slams into North Carolina. We'll have updates on that throughout the night.
Tucker Carlson.
This is Fox News Alert. ABC is reporting tonight that former Donald Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort has tentatively agreed to a plea deal with the special counsel Robert Mueller. If that's true, that deal would head off Manafort's upcoming trial in Washington. He's being tried on charges of fraud and, hilariously, failing to register as a foreign agent. He's already been convicted in the state of Virginia on 8 separate financial charges, tax evasion mostly. It's unclear if this deal, if it exists, would involve any testimony about the 2016 campaign. The special counsel's office, not surprisingly, has declined to comment. We'll, of course, continue to follow it as updates appear. But in other news today, just days ago, Peter Strzok's attorney tried to claim that the text messages that Strzok sent to his girlfriend Lisa Page about a, quote, media leaking strategy were actually evidence he was trying to stop leaks. Ha! It wasn't believable then. It's less believable today because we have a new text message, this also from April of 2017, in which Strzok talks openly to Page about interacting with the press. He says the New York Times was angry because the Washington Post got a scoop surreptitiously on a story about Carter Page. In another message from December of 2016, Strzok told Page, quote, "Think our sisters have begun leaking like mad, scorned and worried and political, they're kicking into overdrive." Don Calloway is an attorney, and he's a former member of the Missouri State House, representing St. Louis, and he joins us tonight. Don, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
So there's a lot we don't know about the context of these, but one thing I think we can be certain of is that the FBI was leaking about an ongoing criminal investigation.
No, we can't be.
Really?
No.
Based on what you just heard?
Yeah, I mean, Page and Strzok had a relationship that we can all agree was inappropriate, that shouldn't have happened. But to take that relationship, first of all, it's very flimsy to suggest that they were somehow trying to initiate or corrupt the Trump administration or the Trump investigation.
By the way,
but also,
I'm not suggesting any of that. I'm just saying they were leaking to the press. He says it in his text.
No, he doesn't. That's very unclear. But I would also suggest that...
Wait, hold on. He just says the New York Times is mad because the Washington Post got it.
He says our sisters are leaking like that. We don't know who any of that is.
In a separate text, he suggests he's been in contact with both the New York Times and the Washington Post, and they're in a competition to get a leak from the FBI.
Right, but he doesn't say that he did that.
Okay, but
he also doesn't
the
say...
FBI was doing it.
And it's also inappropriate to suggest that Page and Strzok's relationship, if we think that they were trying to bring down the president...
I'm not suggesting any of that.
Let me finish. There's one sentence. It's inappropriate to somehow transmogrify that to the entire FBI and impugn the integrity of the entire
But I'm actually
bureau.
being careful and precise.
Right. Let's so.
And I have a lot of theories about this, but here's what I know. The FBI was leaking to the press about an ongoing... Well, he says it repeatedly, and what he does...
Let's review the...
Shall I read it to you?
We shall.
Okay.
We don't know that. We don't know
First, he talked about a media leaking strategy about the FBI, and that's a verbatim quote.
About the FBI, yes. He does not say...
Okay, so there is leaking going on at the FBI about...
He does not say that. That's what these texts do not confirm.
So here's my question. Yeah. Well, they do.
They don't.
He says, our sisters have begun leaking like mad. They're kicking into overdrive.
We don't know who our sisters are. We don't know.
But he says earlier that there are leaks about Carter Page. Here's my meta question, which is why defend this? You don't have to like Trump. All of us as citizens, leaving Trump out of this and Carter Page out of it, why should we allow the most powerful law enforcement agency to leak against U.S. citizens about cases that haven't even been tried yet?
And again, we don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like their relationship. But to suggest that this is something that was happening throughout the FBI is just simply not true.
I'm not suggesting anything.
Again,
what I'm doing is repeating his text in which
he says our sisters. We don't even know who that is.
He, in the text that we got yesterday, again, it couldn't
there's
be
so
clearer.
much of it that's
he says it.
There's so much of it
He refers to story. He's referring to news organizations being mad that they didn't get the scoop. How would he know that unless he'd spoken to them?
There's so much of this is nebulous, and we talk about things that we've heard around town. You and I talk about things
we've heard around town. It's their
text messages. We don't know that he was in touch. We don't. What he's expressing to Lisa Page, we don't know that.
So what you're doing is running interference for the FBI.
I'm not at all.
Well,
but what I'm suggesting is
texts where they're saying
what I'm suggesting is that Page and Strzok's conversation does not suggest that there is a larger, corrupt, leaky FBI.
All I'm saying is it doesn't suggest anything. It tells us in plain language the FBI is leaking about criminal investigations. So here's my question. Why wouldn't you want to know more about that?
I do want to know more about it. And
you know what?
You know what? I am so glad that we have Inspector General Michael Horowitz on the case because he is.
Why aren't you mad about it? I mean, as an American, doesn't that bother you? How'd you like it they did it to you?
Michael Horowitz is looking into into it. And I actually, unlike the president welcoming the Russia investigation, I am very happy.
But how about this? I'm going to leave you on this question.
No, here's the thing. Let me just finish the sentence. I am very happy that the United States Inspector General is looking into
I've lived here too long.
That's a great thing.
I guess it's not great. Look, I want an answer.
Why are we not happy that it's being investigated?
Really simple. Yeah, I'm sure. Investigate it. Mm-hmm. If we find out that the FBI, and I think any reasonable person would conclude we already know, was leaking about an ongoing political investigation, would you be outraged about it?
Absolutely. And I think that
then why aren't you bothered by the obvious suggestion that they were in Peter Strzok's admission?
Those texts are they're not innocuous, but they're very nebulous.
It's so weird. Obviously, Democrats have decided we need to defend corrupt bureaucrats. Why? Why not attack them? Nobody likes this. No good liberal likes this.
I don't like it, but it's kind of hard to say that this is applicable across the board in the FBI.
Well,
These
when we get
very
videotape of Peter Strzok coming out of the Times building in New York, then I'll send it to you.
While he was an agent, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Maybe that'll prove it. Don, great to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Tucker.
Michael Moore is a crusader for the average American. He's told you that countless times. But in business, according to people who work with him, he acts more like the robber barons he denounces. What is that? Greg Gutfeld will unravel that mystery. Plus, after that, our long-awaited interview with Stormy Daniels' lawyer who joins us on set just ahead. Story we thought we'd tell you about. A week ago today, last Thursday, with no warning, federal authorities swooped into something called the National Solar Observatory. It's in Sunspot, New Mexico, right above the Mexican border. And they evacuated the premises. It's a federal facility. There's a post office next door to the observatory, and they shut that down too. Local residents watched all that. They saw at least one Black Hawk helicopter, for real, circling the site. The local sheriff told reporters that the FBI refused to explain any of what was happening to him. Quote, for the FBI to get involved that quick and be so secretive about it, there was a lot of stuff going on up there. Huh. What stuff? Well, we asked. The feds won't say. But the observatory today issued a cryptic statement about an unnamed security issue. Now, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. We're going to keep on it. Find out. American society seems to be fraying at the edges, but filmmaker Michael Moore believes he's part of the solution. He is the hero who can help save it. Watch him describe his role earlier this year.
We must also cleanse our American soul of its white male privilege, its voracious greed, and its enforced ignorance that has made a population of semi-literate and unaware people.
Michael Moore, the soul cleanser. One of the things rotting our soul, he just said, is greed. And yet many people close to Moore, people who would know, say that he himself is Exhibit A for that problem. For example, his film festival has just been sued for allegedly failing to pay vendors, the little people, and instead smearing them in the press. Meanwhile, Moore's ex-wife says that he stiffed her on the profits from the films she helped produce. Those would include Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11. Greg Gutfeld has long made a passion of studying the career of Michael Moore. He also, of course, hosts The Five on Fox as well as the Greg Gutfeld Show, and he joins us tonight. So I'm a little confused by this, Greg. Michael Moore, one thing we know about him is he's a champion of the people. So why isn't he championing individual people and instead scamming them, they say?
Well, that's where you're wrong. He's a man of the people unless those people are working for him. Yes. Then he will shaft them to pay for his pies because he loves his pies. You know, it's the truth of the activists, Tucker. They think globally, but they're jerks locally. The act of caring actually excuses their own obnoxious, self-involved, arrogant behavior. If you ever were in college, you know this. If you had a roommate that was an activist, they would go to the peace marches, but they would never pay their rent on time. They'd never spring for the toilet paper, and they always ate your food, Tucker. I'm also worried because Michael Moore is looking more.
So true.
It's true, but Michael Moore is looking more and more like Large Marge from Pee-wee's Playhouse, the movie Pee-wee's Great Adventure. Do you remember Large Marge, the truck driver?
I missed that. Maybe I saw the sequel. Maybe.
And by the way, he believes that the world's coming to an end. Why is it that people who think they're so brilliant and they think that the world is coming to an end, they never bathe or wear fresh underwear?
Well, maybe that's why, because it's not worth it. But wait, I'm still sort of confused by this. So if you really cared about the world and making it better, wouldn't you begin with the people around you?
They're unimportant Tucker, they're unimportant because you have a greater mission in life, and that is to save the world. Therefore, you could be mean to your wife. You could ignore your kids. You could cheat. You could be terrible. And by the way, Tucker, you're not so perfect yourself. Do you know what yesterday was, Tucker? Do you know what yesterday? Man of the people, Tucker. Populist, Tucker. It was my birthday. Did I hear from Tucker Carlson?
Yes, you did. I texted you. And I said, happy 38th birthday. Yes, I did.
I waited. I was playing our song.
You lost
wore your favorite
You lost
shirt.
your phone in a bar, and you know it.
Anyway.
So I'm going to ask you this, because you're the perfect person to ask.
Sure.
Very shortly in the show, we're going to speak to Stormy Daniels' attorney in just a few minutes. If you were sitting in this chair, what would you ask him?
I would, he's a porn expert. So I would ask him, how do you permanently erase your browser history? Because I'm always interested in that. That's a question. A lot of my friends ask me that question. No, here's what I'm complaining. I got nothing against porn, but this is a highly immoral activity that Stormy Daniels is participating in. It's not adult films. It's that she reneged on a deal. She is a paid sex worker. She gets paid for sex. Isn't that what this is? What is she mad about? I don't understand. What did Trump do?
That's a real question. What is and that's a sincere question, by the way. I feel sorry for Stormy Daniels. I think she's being exploited by the people around her.
Absolutely.
But I don't understand what the injury to her was. And I'm not being mean. Do you know what it was?
It was a deal that they made, and I think maybe she's mad that she could have gotten more money out of it than she did because he became president. Maybe that's why she's upset. The other sad thing about porn is that no one ever retires. They always try to, the whole thing is they try to get out of porn. Everything's about getting, it can't be a good vocation if the first goal is to get out of it.
It's true. Whereas no one ever wants to get on television.
No, that's true. We're dying. Well, you'll have to carry me out of here on a stretcher.
You only get fired. That's the only way out.
Exactly.
Greg Gutfeld, great to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And thanks for the gift.
As we told you, the wait is over after months of trading barbs on air and online. We are going to meet Stormy Daniels' lawyer right here. That's next. And of course, we're going to continue to keep you updated on the path of Hurricane Florence bearing down on the Carolinas. That's ahead too. He represents the porn actress Stormy Daniels in her lawsuits against the president and Michael Cohen. But in the last 6 months, he has become famous in his own right. He's now one of the most consistent fixtures on cable news in this country. He's appeared on CNN and MSNBC literally hundreds of times, but he's moving beyond being a mere television celebrity. He's now talking about running for office for president. He's released his positions on major issues. He's traveled to Iowa and New Hampshire and Michigan and Ohio. He seems serious about it. We've invited him on the show many times to talk about his plans, but he's always declined until tonight. He's now agreed to appear on our set, provided we give him time to state his case, and we're, of course, happy to do that. In the past, he's also demanded that we stop referring to him by a certain unflattering nickname. And we haven't agreed to that demand, but tonight, as a gesture of goodwill, we will not use that nickname, because we're always grateful when guests are brave enough to show up in person, including in this case. And he joins us now. Thanks a lot for coming on. So, I mean, we could sit and hurl insults at each other for the segment. Already done that. I've certainly insulted you. You've insulted me. But you seem smart. So let me take you seriously as someone who wants to be involved in the public conversation and ask you about things that you have said on questions of policy to flesh them out a little bit. So this is you at a rally in July. I think it was the day after the president spoke with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. And you were addressing a rally. And here's what you said. Watch.
What Vladimir Putin and Russia did to this country in connection with the 2016 election is no different than if they had placed 100,000 troops on our border. This was an invasion. It was an electronic invasion. It used hackers and tweeters to elect this president.
So if Russia had 100,000 troops on our border, I mean, that would be an act of war, a profound provocation. What would be the rational response to that if you really felt the threat was that profound? If you were president, how would you respond to that?
Well, Tucker, I understood that I was coming on your show tonight to talk about the case involving my client.
Well, I didn't tell you that, and I'm happy to talk about the case. But I just played you a clip.
Tucker, you got to stop. Tucker, you got to stop interrupting me, okay? Because one of the conditions of me coming on tonight was that you were not going to do what you do routinely to guests, which is talk over them and interrupt them. So just let me finish with my answer, okay? Let me finish with my answer.
I said I'd give you a fair interview. I actually don't have an interest in squabbling with you at all or name calling. I've done a lot of that to you, and you've done it to me.
No, but not to my face.
I could, but what's the point? I want to take you seriously. I'm serious.
Okay.
So I just played a clip of what you said at a rally. You're traveling to states because you want to influence policy direction.
Correct.
I don't think it's unfair to ask you about something that you said.
What's the question?
And the question, let me restate it, is you said that Russia has done something that is equivalent to putting 100,000 troops on our border. That's an act of war.
Correct.
And I wonder two things. One, what you would do as president if that happened under your watch. And two, what do you think Russia thinks watching public figures like you say that we're at war with Russia? What effect do you think that has?
Well, first of all, there's no question that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in a very serious way. The only question is, what was the involvement in Donald Trump or by Donald Trump and his cronies in the process? Okay. And that's what Bob Mueller's in the process of getting to the bottom of.
But how should we as a country respond?
There you go, interrupted me again. Okay. So how should we respond?
Yes, I asked you 3 times.
We should respond with the absolute force of the law. We should be doing everything in our power to bring those individuals to justice, those individuals that are also in Russia. And let me tell you what we should not be doing. We should not be standing shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin and choosing Russia over the hardworking men and women of the intelligence community that risk their lives for this country. So the president has sold out the United States for the benefit of Putin.
The administration announced today a new round of even tougher sanctions against Russia. Do you support that?
I think it's a start, but I don't think it's
what would be the end?
I don't think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think the president has shown any leadership relating to
sanctions are not a step in the right direction?
No, I said it's a step, but it's not enough. Okay. I believe that President Trump should demand the extradition of each and every individual in Russia that Bob Mueller and others believe were responsible for the election meddling in 2016.
Okay, so I think a number of people have been charged. Okay, that's a start.
I think that's a start.
I mean, if you really believe that it's the same as 100,000, what I'm saying is you're using reckless rhetoric on a subject you don't really understand that increases the temperature between the United States and a nuclear-armed adversary. Is that a responsible thing to do?
I think under the circumstances, I stand by my words, and I think for you to lecture...
That it's 100,000 troops on the border?
I think for you to lecture me about reckless rhetoric is rather ironic, Tucker, in light of some of the reckless rhetoric that you engage in each and every day on this show.
Reckless rhetoric, okay. So you've said that you are a civil libertarian, in effect. You're a libertarian on sex questions, and that's fine with me. Does it bother you that the Obama administration authorized spying on American citizens connected to a rival presidential campaign?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's been established that occurred, number one.
That Carter Page was spied on?
I don't believe that that's been established, number one, that in fact President Obama authorized
his administration authorized
Are you going to interrupt me for the entire segment?
I'm
or just
clarifying because I don't think you understand the question.
No, I do
The Obama
understand
administration authorized spying on an American citizen connected to the Trump campaign. Does that bother you at all?
First of all, I don't think that's been established. If it was established, of course it would bother me. Are we going to get to the facts of my client's case?
Yeah, let me just ask you one last real adult question first, because you're traveling around the country as a commentator on politics, and I'm interested to know what you think. I don't think that's illegitimate. So it has not been established that Carter Page was spied on? Is that what you're saying?
How many times are you going to ask me the same question? I've already stated that in my view, I don't believe that President Obama has been shown to have authorized the spying, quote unquote.
The Obama administration. Why dodge the question? Look, you traveled here with policy advisors who've worked on other campaigns to the show tonight.
I have no idea.
I think you'd be ready for a simple question.
I didn't travel here with policy advisors. Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question.
No, I don't think. Why don't you get a TV show and then you can ask me a question? I've asked you a simple question and you're not
you don't call Donald Trump the creepy porn president? He's the one that had sex with a 4-month-old son at home with my client without a condom.
Okay,
but you don't want to acknowledge that.
Hold on.
You don't want to acknowledge
that.
Acknowledge it.
Okay.
Do you believe that he had sex with my client?
Yes, I do. I've said that on the air multiple
times. So he's lied repeatedly to the American people, and you're okay with that. You think it's okay if the president lies to the American people?
Settle down. Let me finish my question to you. What is the crime, the harm, the injury to your client by Donald Trump? As far as I understand, this was a consensual sexual relationship, and yes, I believe it occurred. I don't know that, but it seems like it did. I'm willing to believe that it did. But it seemed consensual, and then she was paid at the end of it. And yet you... And by the way, I'm not attacking Stormy Daniels. I feel sorry for her. I feel she's being exploited.
You've attacked her for 6 months.
I feel that you and others are exploiting her. So I feel bad for her. But I'm wondering what the injury is to her.
I think you demean her repeatedly, and
really?
I think you're a hypocrite.
So let me ask you what the injury. You want to talk about the case. I'm asking you the core question in the case. What is the injury to Stormy Daniels?
The injury is that the agreement that was entered into was not adhered to by Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. They did not fulfill their end of the bargain. Now, do you want to talk about the injury to the American people, the lies and the
lying. So you believe no, but you just went off on this moral lecture about how it was wrong for the president to have an adulterous affair, and I would agree with that. But you're very outraged. Yes, you said it's an injury against the American people that he had sex with someone, not his wife, when his wife was pregnant.
You didn't let me finish. The injury is that he and Michael Cohen and others lied to the American people and covered up the $130,000 payment and violated campaign finance law. That's why Michael Cohen, I'm not done. That's why Michael Cohen just pled guilty.
Let me ask you a question.
That's why Michael Cohen just pled guilty.
I understand them. I've been following the news as well.
Okay.
Did Donald Trump have a moral obligation to tell the American people that he had a sexual relationship with Stormy Daniels?
I don't care whether he had a moral obligation or not.
Why is it a crime that he didn't?
No, what he had an obligation to do was not cover it up and lie about it and commit campaign finance violations as his right hand. Michael Cohen just pled guilty to the felony. Tucker, what are you talking about?
To campaign finance violations?
Yes, associated with Miss McDougal. And I thought you were following the news.
So let me
ask you. Let me ask you.
I'm a little confused. So you're the protector of Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels is right now working in strip clubs in little towns on stage. People are throwing things at her. You're wearing a $1,000 suit. Why are you not paying her? You've profited from Stormy Daniels. You've done tens of millions of dollars worth of free media on the basis of your relationship with her, and she's working in strip clubs. You're exploiting her, and you know that. Why aren't you paying her some of what you're making?
Sir, this is absurd.
It's not absurd. Those are the facts.
No, you don't know the facts, as evidenced by the fact that
you don't even in strip clubs?
Are you going to continue to interrupt me, or are you going to let me finish?
I do know the facts, actually.
No, you don't, because you just demonstrated your ignorance, because you didn't even know Michael Cohen pled to 2 felonies associated with the campaign finance violations.
I don't believe that what Cohen did, and I'm not defending Cohen, I never have, was a campaign finance violation. I think it's absurd. I think it's absurd.
He pled guilty to 2 felonies.
Okay, so everyone who pleads, look, this is a stupid, we have an honest disagreement. I don't think it was a campaign finance violation. Stormy Daniels was to perform in Richmond in a depressing strip club. This hero that you say you're protecting, you're her protector. Why is she working in seedy strip clubs while you're on television wearing expensive suits? Why are you not exploiting her? Why is she doing that?
Because she wants to, Tucker. And
she wants to.
This is America. This is America. And guess what? If a woman wants to perform in a strip club, she does so.
But you're getting rich.
Even though people, I'm not getting rich. Even though people like you demean her,
I'm not demeaning
her.
You're the one who's profiting.
You're the one that refers to her consistently as a porn star, and as to me as a creepy porn lawyer. And meanwhile, you give the president. Meanwhile, you give the president a pass who had unprotected sex with the porn star with a 4-month-old son at home.
Well, you are a moralizer for a guy who does what you do.
No, but
you are though. You are a little moralizer. You're like, we're in church now with a 4-month-old son. Okay, I'm officially shocked by Donald Trump's behavior. I had no idea. It blew my mind. But answer my question. Why are you rich and your client is working in seedy strip clubs?
Sir, do you have any idea how much money I've earned for
You're on every cable show. You're running for president now.
You have no idea.
Well, I know that you haven't paid your taxes because you've got over $1 million worth of
ridiculous. You don't even know your facts.
It's not true that you don't even know
over $1 million
your
facts, Tucker.
Look, I'm just saying, why is she still...
How do you have a show and you're this ignorant? How is that
Here's
possible?
what I know for a fact is that your client is not thriving. And for you to look at me in the eye and say she wants to perform in strip clubs with people throwing stuff at her is insulting to her. People don't do that unless they have no choice, or she just likes it. Is that what you're saying?
Tucker, now you're the defender of my client. You don't know anything about
pathetic.
my...
You're exploiting her.
You don't know anything about my client. Exploiting my client.
I know that she's working in a strip club in Richmond.
You gotta let me finish. Can I finish?
Please do.
All right. I've done a remarkable job for my client, and she'll be the first one to tell you that. And had you listened to any of her interviews or seen any of her comments, you would know exactly what she thinks of me. I'm not done. I am not exploiting my client. I'm representing my client to the absolute.
So when she wants to get your legal advice, does she have to pretend to be a booker from CNN to get through to you?
You know, that's disgusting. Why don't you show
What's
some
disgusting
respect?
is
why don't you
you are
show some
thriving
respect to my client and me and stop calling us a porn star and a creepy porn lawyer? If you've got that big a problem with porn, do you have that big a problem with porn?
I'm not making fun of.
When's the last time? When's the last time you saw porn?
Oh, you busted me. Actually, I made humiliation porn. That's why I watch you on CNN.
No, but when's the last time you? When's the last time you viewed porn?
You're a little creepier even than I realized.
Do you have a problem with porn?
You're dodging the question that I have asked you repeatedly.
Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that people that view porn should watch your show?
I'm not even sure what that question means, but I will say this sincerely, that I have never attacked Stormy Daniels.
Yes, you have, repeatedly.
I think you are exploiting her, as I've said 5 times, and you haven't answered the question, which is, why is it that her life has stalled and your life you're planning a new career as a politician, and like so many lawyers, you are taking advantage of her. And you pose as a feminist hero because you are shameless and the other channels let you get away with it. But you're an exploiter of a woman, and you should be ashamed of it.
And you're
are you going to
let me finish? Let me respond?
We're out of time, and I gave you more time. More time than I promised you.
You don't know what you're talking about.
But it is nice to see you.
Yet again.
12 minutes. Creepy porn lawyer. Great to see you. Mark Stein joins us after the break to react to that interview. Plus, we'll have more on Hurricane Florence as it begins cutting its potentially deadly path through the Carolinas. Stay tuned. We just finished speaking to Stormy Daniels' attorney. During that interview, Mark Stein was observing from the wings, and he joins us now to assess. So I guess what struck me about it, maybe it struck you, Mark, and I hate to attack people when they're not here, so I'm not really attacking, I'm just noting there was this undertone of moralizing, like it's unbelievable that Trump would do this, it's betraying the country. Either you get to be a libertarian on this stuff, or you get to be an evangelical on it, but you can't be both, can you?
No, and as you said, it's particularly absurd when his client, and I'm glad you mentioned her name because he's now far more famous than the client.
Yes,
only in America. Normally in sex scandals, the person having the sex becomes famous. And it's a sad comment on contemporary America that the lawyer representing the person having the sex is now more famous. But as you said...
Let me just pause and say, that is so deep and true what you just said. I'm printing it out and putting it on my fridge. That's totally right. Sorry, excuse me.
No, it's true. And she is playing seedy strip clubs, the worst of the worst, where you're standing on a narrow 18-inch bar while they're throwing dollar bills at you. And she's actually engaged in the same thing that this guy was doing on your show. They both trying to figure out a way to monetize the case. And as you say, his way of monetizing the case is in being on primetime TV shows. And you insulted him by saying it was a $1,000 suit. It's a $4,000 suit. That's how well he's living. She's on those strip club bars collecting those dollar bills because I take it even if he's on a pro bono basis, she's still having to pay all the so-called quote-unquote costs.
Then he says, so look, I don't even judge her in some ways because it's hard to make a living. I don't think you should be dancing in a strip club, but I also know that people, do things they shouldn't do because they're desperate. What infuriates me is when he takes something as depressing as dancing in a strip club in Richmond or Bend, Oregon, where she's something thrown at her, and says, well, that's your choice. That's empowerment as a feminist woman. That's not empowerment. It's sad.
No, this is an evolution of the cliche. The cliche used to be that, you're working in strip clubs to put yourself through law school. She's working in strip clubs to put her lawyer into the White House. She will, I said when this whole thing started that the tragedy of this, he's basically a Category 5 hurricane porn lawyer, and she's like some spindly little clabbered house on the beach that will be left busted, broken up in pieces, and with nothing to show for this.
That is so true. In the end, the only ones who thrive are the lawyers, the parasites. No. And that is actually a metaphor for what's happening in this country more broadly. Right. Shakespeare was right. Boy, right. Mark, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor. That's how you meant to wrap it up with him.
Unbelievable.
You need a court stenographer to read back the question.
Is it really quick? Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have asked that you would want? I'm not sure he's going to come back, but if he does, that we should ask?
I was fascinated by his idea that 100,000 troops on the Canadian border from Russia is something you need to prosecute according to law. Brilliant. We should have tried that with Pearl Harbor. Filed suit in Tokyo District Court. It would all have been over a lot quicker.
Extradition treaties. That's so good. Mark Steyn, it's always such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
By the way, Stormy Daniels' book comes out on October 2nd. I happen to know that because in one of those weird coincidences that happens, my book comes out the very same day. Daniels has written a tell-all, Time to Help Democrats in the Midterm Elections, probably advised by her lawyer to do that. I've written a book about why powerful forces are promoting people like Stormy Daniels and creepy porn lawyer in the first place. The book is called Ship of Fools, and it's a story of how our political class manufactures sideshows like this to hide the fact that they have no idea what they're doing, but are getting rich doing it. 2 books out the same day. If you want to send a message, this might be the time. You can pre-order it if you want, just to make that message crystal clear. We've got a Fox News alert. Of course, the outer edge of Hurricane Florence now made contact with the coast of North Carolina, bringing with it powerful winds, huge amounts of rain, and a storm surge that could be deadly. Our correspondent Steve Harrigan is in North Topsail Beach, North Carolina, right in the path of this hurricane, and he joins us tonight. Steve, what's it like?
Tucker, it's really gotten worse every hour. Right now, we're seeing sustained tropical storm force winds. In a couple hours, we're probably going to see hurricane force winds of over 100 miles an hour. The rain is just coming down in sheets. It's actually blowing right into me. It's been like that for the last several hours. That's the real concern here, is after the wind passes through, we could see 30 or 40 inches of rain in some places. It was described in one weather report as potential total inundation in parts of North Carolina. So that's the real fear. Most of the people are off this island. We just lost our own electric power a short time ago, and it's just complete darkness all the way down this island. The people were well warned. They took those warnings seriously, and most of them have boarded up these houses here right on the beach and left. So they're for the large part gone, but for those who stayed and know the risks, there is going to be some help. Some very brave first responders are prepared. There are swift boat rescue teams. There's the National Guard that's been called up, several thousand members, and also the Army is ready to save people as well with high water vehicles as well as helicopters. So this could be a really dicey and dangerous next 48 hours here along the coast of North Carolina. Tucker, back to you.
Steve Harrigan, who is always on the scene, no matter what, no matter where. Thank you. Leland Vittert is in Morehead City, North Carolina for us tonight. Leland, what's it looking like?
Well, Tucker, the storm hit here a couple of hours before it hit Steve, so it has continually been a little bit stronger here, and that is the real concern is these conditions have been going on for hours. Typically in hurricanes, the really bad stuff only lasts a couple of hours. It could last 12 to 24 hours where we are. We've seen winds up to about 80 miles an hour, some gusts probably stronger than that. Again, power has been out here for now about 6 hours, complete darkness, and you can see as the tide has begun to come in, we're getting the storm surge that has come in. Now it's actually much harder to stand than it ever has been here. This storm surge, in the next couple of hours or so, will lift these docks clear up. Where I'm standing will be flooded and turn those docks into barges of destruction here throughout this town. Then, of course,